Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Psi Phi Fraternity 2nd District Health and Wellness webinar series. I am Dr. Keith Boykin. I'm going to be your host for the evening. Now, we've been offline for a little while, but we're kicking off our webinars tonight with a very special program. Our focus is and has always been preventative health in communities of color, but this information is for anyone. This evening promises to be very, very informative by our two guest speakers. So, yeah, we got a serious topic we're going to talk about tonight. So we're gonna knock it off. Kick it off real good tonight. So let's go ahead and get started. And we'll have the members of the committee introduce themselves and give a brief bio. And then I have Brother Dr. Guyton introduce our guest speakers. And I'll start with myself. I am a retired pediatrician with internists with over 30 years of private practice prior to my retirement. And I've been doing this webinar series for a long time with the brothers. So I'm going to go ahead and have Dr. Jedan Phillips introduce himself, followed by Dr. Guyton, and then the introduction of our speaker. So go ahead, Dr. Phillips.
Good evening, my brother. Good evening, everyone. My name is Jedan Phillips. I'm the co-chair of the 2nd District Health and Wellness Committee. I am a board-certified family practitioner, but also active in the academic medical space. I am a dean at Stony Brook Renaissance School of Medicine, also a professor there. So again, as Dr. Boykin mentioned, we are excited to be back. Again, we're going to start with some important information because, as always, our theme and our messages are about prevention and how we can help. Because as we all know, in these past couple years, those that have more significant health risk factors and other related conditions, unfortunately, are not doing as well. And that also includes in the mental health space. And unfortunately, those individuals that we're referring to that are at the highest risk look like me and you. So again, excited to be here tonight. Excited to hear our very, very distinguished speakers share their wisdom with us. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Phillips. Dr. Guyton, will you come on and give your bio and then introduce our speakers, please?
Hi, good evening, everyone. Again, my name is Dr. Cedric Guyton. By trade, I am a clinical pharmacist, epidemiologist that works in the public health service space. I have spent over 25 years as a pharmacist and more than 21 years in working in the public health service space in many underserved communities. Tonight, we have an exciting group of young, intelligent, very smart mental health experts. First, I want to introduce Captain Stephanie Felder. Captain Stephanie Felder is a captain in the United States Public Health Service. Now, she currently serves as the at-risk individual lead within the Office of Strategy, Policy, and Requirements at the Administration for Strategic Preparedness and Response, which we call ASPR. Now, in this role, Captain Felder leads the effort to enhance disaster preparedness and response policies to at-risk population. Previously, Captain Felder served within the Traumatic Brain Injury Special Projects Lead at the Defense Health Agency. Now, as you can see, for Captain Felder to be here is very special. She's one of our leading analysts in this field within the United States Public Health Service. From 2019 to 2022, she served as the Chief of Traumatic Brain Injury Outcomes, managing care strategies for over 450,000 service members affected by traumatic brain injuries. Next, with Captain Felder tonight, we also have an esteemed guest of Lieutenant Commander Gideon Esuzar. He is the Deputy Liaison for the Office of Health Security within the United States Commission Corps Affairs at the Department of Homeland Security here in D.C. Now, at UCCA, he is responsible for managing all personnel matters for nearly 700 public health service officers. Prior to joining the Department of Homeland Security, Lieutenant Commander Esuzar served as a Mental Health Memorandum Agreement Program Manager for the Commission Corps Program Office at the Human Capital Division within the Defense Health Headquarters at Falls Church. Now, what we have is two very, very smart healthcare practitioners who are going to work in the space for the next couple of weeks with us to provide us great background information on understanding behavioral health, mental health, and its impact on our wellness. I'll start by saying thank you to you both for taking the time to be here with us and to introduce us to this special subject, which we'll have a series of conversations over the next couple of weeks. Captain Felder, you have the floor.
Thank you so much for that. I'm going to share my screen and then we will jump into this presentation. We are so excited to be here tonight with you all. Okay, let's see.
You may have to hit the present button down there. You see it?
Yes,
There
I
you go.
think it's coming up.
Yeah, we
Can
can
you
see
see
it.
the presentation? Okay, great.
Yeah.
All right. Glad we got through that technology piece. All right. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Guyton, for the wonderful opening and introduction. And thank you to the Omegas and anyone else that's here from the Divine Nine. As you can see, I am a lady of Sigma Gamma Rho Sorority Incorporated. So it is truly an honor to be here with you all and to be able to have this conversation tonight. So first off, this is more than a presentation. This will be real talk. It will be a conversation, a brotherhood check-in, if you will. Tonight is the first within a series, as Dr. Guyton mentioned, where we're going to talk about mental health, stress, resilience, and there will be no sugarcoating and no stigma here. This is truly a safe space to have this conversation. As you can see, the title of this presentation is Breaking the Silence in the Black Community, and that is because we have been silent about this for too long. We tiptoe around this conversation, and sometimes we don't even have this conversation, but this is the first of many conversations that we will have about this topic. Tonight, you'll hear us talk about mental health in general. We'll delve into some awareness on suicide. But then as we go on into the other sessions, we'll have more information on stress management and coping techniques. We will also talk about cultural pressure and dealing with imposter syndrome, because I know many of you are high flyers and we're in many spaces and different spaces, and we're trying to be our whole selves in these spaces, but also dealing with the pressure that comes along with that. And so I want to tell you a little bit more about myself, and then I'm going to pass it over to Dr. Asuzar to talk a little more about himself as well. But as Dr. Guyton said, I am a licensed clinical social worker, and I've been in this space for over 15 years doing mental health. And I got my start in juvenile justice in North Carolina in a locked residential with girls. And many of those girls looked just like me. They were African American. I think we had about 98% African American um, juvenile justice kids there. And so that in itself was alarming for me when I walked through the door. I had some expectations around that because I saw the stats, but actually being in a locked residential in that setting with all of those young Black women that were exposed to so much trauma, from generational trauma to current substance abuse, and then their own mental health issues, and then encounters with law enforcement, and ending up where we were sitting there in a locked residential with, barbed wire all around us, just truly locked in, and being their clinician and being that ear for them. And then moving from that to the federal space at the VA, where I work with homeless veterans. And I will say at that time I was surprised, because what I did not expect to see were so many African American veterans homeless at that, which led me to A, put on my own uniform, but B, go for my PhD and look at the issue of homelessness among our veterans. But then I focused in on our women. And once again, I found myself meeting with many Black female veterans and hearing their stories of, once again, trauma and mental health, but also some areas of racism and discrimination, and their whole just life story and how they got into that pathway of becoming homeless. So I wanted to share that with you all to talk about the how mental health has, just from the juvenile justice setting to to the veteran setting, how that has just been a core part of many of these stories, no matter how they turn out. And so we're here to talk about this more, to explore this more, and then kind of bring this all home for you all. And with that, I will turn it over to Dr. Suzar to tell you yourself before we jump into the presentation. Over.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Fellow. Can you hear me?
Loud and
Yes, we can
clear.
hear you.
Thank you. Thank you. What a pleasure to be here. Thank you, Rad Guyton. You are my hero. I adore you. I really do. I'm honored because I'm an alpha man, so I've never been in a space like this. So this is truly, truly an honor to be here. So I am the deputy liaison for the Department of Homeland Security, where, as Real McGuire mentioned, we essentially take care of almost 700 officers detailed to DHS. So officers in the Secret Service, Border Protection, ICE. And so it's been a joy doing that. I oversee the psychological wellness of my officers. But prior to that, I worked as the mental health memorandum of agreement program manager for DoD, and that is essentially where I fell in love with psychiatry, and I decided to go and to get my doctorate in the space. I'm a clinician. I started my career in the emergency departments, and then I did some critical care, and then I went to cardiac electrophysiology. I worked as a post anesthesia care nurse. I served in the Air Force. I was a flight nurse in the Air Force, deployed to Afghanistan, deployed to Qatar. It was when I deployed to Afghanistan and came back with, I said, a slight touch of PTSD that I started embracing the space, the field of psychiatry, to be quite honest with you. So, and then obviously I went to DoD, and then I decided it was time to get clinically trained in this space. I've been a psych MP for about a year and a half. And so when the opportunity came to speak to this group, it was just the honor of my life, because I am vested in the wellness of our Black men. I think not enough is being done in this space, and I felt like I shouldn't wait for other community to take care of my community. To be quite honest with you, now I would say I am for all community, but I have a special place in my heart for our community for sure, especially among Black men. So it is a joy to be here, and I can't wait to get into the discussion. Over.
Okay, thank you so much. So Dr. Felder, I guess you have, I guess, a bit gender or sequence you want to go to, but I guess one of my questions is, why does all this matter? What is it? Why are we at this space that we need to talk about? Why does this matter?
Okay, yes, there's definitely a sequence that I want to go through, but this matters for many reasons. I'm going to advance the slides as well here.
Okay.
All right. So this matters for many reasons. First of all, as I was saying earlier, the stigma around mental health, the fact that people feel like they can't have this conversation, some of the shame, the fear, the embarrassment that comes around talking about mental health, and especially for Black men. That's why it matters, because when we don't have these conversations, things like suicide, as you can see on this slide, is increasing. 1 in 5 Black adults experience mental illness yearly, and they're not being treated for it. And when this happens, it not only impacts that person. If you're a father, it impacts your children. If you're a husband, it impacts your partner. If you're a son, that impacts your mother. So we're talking about the impact across families and communities. While yes, it is the individual experiencing it, that the ripple effect of mental health and what you're going through, and if it ends in suicide, even more so, will ripple across your family and throughout your community. So it matters because we're not having these conversations, and we're waiting too long to normalize the impact of mental health within our community. And it's easier for people to be able to go to the doctor for physical health issues, right? If you have a headache, you're able to say, I'm not feeling well, I'm having headaches, I'm going to go to the doctor. If you fall and you break your leg, clear, it's a clear path straight to the doctor. But when you're having other issues, that's not always the course. If you even see a doctor, if you even see a therapist, or even if you even have a conversation with your partner or with a family member, with a friend, with your brother. And so oftentimes within our community, we are pushed as Black people, and especially as Black men, you have to be strong, right? You
Right.
have to be there for your family. You have to be there for yourself. So, being strong will stop you from seeking help. Being strong will mean that you will remain silent and suffer through what you're going through before you feel that you can turn to someone and say, something isn't right and I need help.
Right.
Um, it's been almost a cornerstone, because yes, as African Americans and Black people, we've had to be strong. But now I'm asking you all, but at what cost?
Mm-hmm.
At what cost are we being strong, that we can't have a conversation about the anxiety that we're feeling, about the depression that we're feeling, and even more so, not only that I can't come to you and talk to you about it, but you can see it in me because you know me very well, but you don't even feel comfortable coming to me and saying, Stephanie, I noticed you haven't left the house in 3 weeks. I noticed you haven't done XYZ in so many days, because there's such a stigma around this topic. Also, you know, a lot of times we believe that therapy isn't for us. If it's not for us, who is it for? is the
Right.
question I want to pose, because therapy is for anyone. You don't have to be in crisis before you seek help. I strongly encourage that you don't wait until you're in crisis to seek help. There's also a fear of, kind of going back to that strong mindset, a fear of being labeled as weak, or um, being, you're crazy. But
Mm-hmm.
we've created this discourse around this topic that we have to pull back the layers on that and have these discussions about where is this coming from. And that leads me to my next point, some of the barriers to seeking help. One of the things I hear a lot, people will say, well, I really want someone that can understand me. And I get that, if you're a Black man, I get that you want a therapist that you can relate to. And so you may be wondering, well, how do I find, a Black male therapist? And I will say, there's not a lot out there. That was one of the reasons why I asked Dr. Suzar to be here today, because I wanted you all to see that representation, that they are out there. It's not a
Mm-hmm.
lot of them, but they are. And one of the things I plan to do, and I'll send this to you, Dr. Guyton, is I created a tip sheet of how to find culturally competent providers that you can share with folks. But there's many avenues of finding a therapist. And before I start to delve into that, another thing I want to say is, finding a therapist is a process. You get to interview that person. It must be a good fit. It's like going into a relationship. This is the person that you're going to open up to. You're going to share, your secrets, your fears, your anxiety. So it needs to be a good fit. So I highly encourage you, even if you find, I know they're hard to find, the black male therapists and black therapists in general, but you still do need to interview these people and make sure that that is a good fit for you. So some ways that you might go about that is starting with your doctor and asking for a referral. Um, you can also go to your insurance website and kind of go through. Most of them have like filters where you can say, I'm looking for a clinician, and you can select gender, race, and things like that. If you're looking for a certain, sexual orientation, there's also some websites, and this will all be on the tip sheet, so you don't have to worry about trying to record anything or write anything down. Therapy for Black Men, clinicians of color, um, and then also, as I said, the referrals, like from someone that you know that has a good therapist. I have several friends that are practicing and accepting clients as well. And so I'll include their information on that tip sheet as well. I have a really good friend, Dr. Kenyatta Gash, and she has therapists across the country, because this is something that she's very passionate about. And so she set up her practice filled with men and women of color, to be able to provide the services that we need. So when you do embark on that journey, just know that you're not alone, and this journey is really for you. So you have to feel comfortable with this person, because otherwise you'll get a therapist and you won't use that therapist, and we want that to be a place that you feel safe, that you can feel. And sometimes people are like, oh no, not that word, but vulnerable. And that you're not going to be judged when you share what it is that you need to share. And then of course I know there's distrust and mistrust of systems, um, which will occur. And I kind of need to go back, um, to another point, and that's, as you're looking for that therapist, and you may be looking for a therapist of color, if you can't find one right away, I encourage you to still try to move forward with someone until you can find that person that you're looking for. And I wanted to go back to that, because if you are in crisis or headed to crisis, you don't want to lose valuable time because you're trying to find that special fit. So if you can have a placeholder, please go for that versus waiting to find that perfect fit, because it just might take a while. But in the meantime, don't let um, your needs go unmet because you can't find that special person that you're looking for. Um, and then lastly, another point that I wanted to make is, oftentimes, many of us are spiritual or religious, and, you said, well, I'm going to pray on it. And, I don't take that away from anybody. I pray on things all the time, but I also put in work. And so what I'm saying here is, you know, praying on it is great, but sometimes you got to move the needle to what else do you need to do? Pray on it, plus see a therapist, plus meditate, plus you see where I'm going with that.
Right.
Um, you have to, you have to add in all the ingredients that you need for this recipe. You just can't lean on one area and hope that it works out, because hope isn't a strategy in, in this game of life. You have to do more than that. So I highly encourage people, as you go and you seek help, and these barriers will come, but find ways to work around these barriers and to go over these barriers. Don't let any of these stop you from accessing the care that you need, and also the care that you deserve. Um, and that moves me into my next point of mental health and physical health. Mental pain becomes physical pain. It starts here, and then it navigates through the rest of your body. You wouldn't ignore any other type of pain. If you had chest pain, you wouldn't ignore it. Um, So why is it okay to ignore any mental pain that you're having, any emotional pain or anguish that you are experiencing. And I know sometimes it's easier to say, I don't want to feel that. I don't want to go through that. You might lose someone and you're grieving, but you're trying to be strong for the family. I mean, I've been through that myself when I lost my father. Um, Trying to be strong, trying to push through, not grieving because, first of all, I didn't want everybody to see me break down, but that's what happened anyway. I took the long route to the breakdown and the depression that I experienced. Even at that time, I wasn't licensed. I wasn't a licensed therapist, but I had completed my master's in social work. But I still took the long route because within where I was and what I was dealing with, I really didn't want to feel that pain. And it took me a while to own it after, losing about 20 pounds and clearly being depressed, to finally say, okay, yeah, I need to see a therapist as well because I'm here. My mental pain, my grief became physical very, very quickly, um, in weight loss, in migraine headaches, and other issues that I experienced because I didn't want to address what I was feeling, and I thought it would be easier to kind of bury those feelings as I buried my father. But I learned the hard way that those feelings, those emotions, they come back up, and when they come, it's like a wave. And many of my friends that are experiencing grief or are at that point in their lives where they're losing a loved one or a parent, I tell them, ride the waves. Don't try to run away from them. Like when you're on the beach, you try to, run away from the water. Ride the waves. Feel what is there and what you need to feel. Go through that process. Embrace that hurt. Embrace that loss because you have to go through it. You cannot go around it. And just more examples of how mental health manifests itself in a physical way. Anxiety and tension, stomach issues, depression, feeling fatigue, not getting up, chronic pain, the trauma, high blood pressure, the things that many of us are dealing with, but we're taking something for the physical part of it. We're doing something about the physical part of it because that's what shows. But what are we doing to address the mental part of it? Um, Before I turn it over to Dr. Suzar, I really want to stress this point about the suicide rates and how they are increasing in our communities, and that the silence, the lack of conversation, it isn't saving any lives. By not having these hard conversations, when you see someone suffering, when you know your brother isn't right, they haven't been the same since they lost their job or since they lost their mother or the partner or went through a divorce. When you see something, say something. And sometimes it's just as easy as asking, how are you doing? And we all like to say, oh, I'm all right. I'm good. I'm good. But then you say, but how are you really doing? Try that at some point with someone. When when they ask you that second time, it's like, oh, he wants to know how I'm really doing. Yeah. I don't want to hear the how are you doing in the hallway at work and you say, oh, I'm good, having a good day, hanging in there, keep on going. No, because you're my sister, you're my brother. I want to know how you are really doing. And when I do that with folks, I make space for that conversation. I hold space for that conversation because I know you as my sister, I know something is not right. I know you're suffering from something. And if it has to be me for the next hour or 2 hours or whatever it is to have that conversation to make sure that you're good, that's what we have to do. lastly, before I turn it over to Dr. Suzar, just to drive this point home, Black males are 4 times more likely to die by suicide than Black females. Suicide is the 3rd leading cause of death for Black youth ages 10 to 24, and I know many of you have children. And only 15% of Black adults are getting mental health treatment. That is a problem. It's a problem when we have our youth killing themselves. It's a problem when we have our men killing themselves. It is a problem. And if a small, short conversation or a small phrase of "and how are you really doing" could put a pin in that, could stop that, could cause someone to think about something a little longer and say, this is what's happening and this is what, this is what I was thinking about doing, then have that conversation. And people will say, I don't know if I really want to ask somebody that question if they're contemplating something like that. Asking the question is not going to push them over the edge. If they're at that point, asking the question might be the reason, might be the thing that will save their life in that moment. So with that, I'll pause. Do you have any questions? And I'll turn it over to Dr. Suzar as well.
I don't see any questions in the chat right now. We do have a live audience, so we'll go ahead and continue roll with the program. So Dr. Suzar, go ahead and take your floor is yours.
Thank you. So, warning signs of suicide. There's a reason why healing has to occur in community. It has to, because when you engage with your brother, when you engage with a friend on a frequent basis, it is easy to, see the signs, the warning signs of suicide. Because all of a sudden they start to express feelings of hopelessness, feeling like the world is caving down on them. They withdraw from family and friends. That is not the time to go. He's just doing his thing. Let him be. It might be the time to send a text, call him, and ask him, "How you doing?" "Oh, I'm good." No, really, how are you doing? So we as a community need to do a better job with I call it demystifying psychotherapy. And I'm going to kind of engage in more of that in the next slide. So next slide. So in order to destigmatize mental health care, we need to do is demystify psychotherapy. Now, oftentimes when we think about psychotherapy, what we think about is sitting on that couch and have someone talk to you about your childhood and what happened, what traumatic event led to why you act a certain way. Well, that is psychoanalysis, and that is, of course, a form of therapy. But the therapy could be just having a conversation, to be quite honest with you, because there's something powerful about knowing you're not the only one going through something. For instance, I remember when George Floyd was murdered, I was depressed for, I would say, a couple of weeks. I just wasn't right. Just watching a Black man being murdered on the street in that manner just did something to me. So I was heavy for a long time, for a couple of weeks, I would say. I think I was clinically depressed. And then finally, I called a brother, Alpha brother, and essentially shared my thoughts with him. And he said, "Brother, I'm feeling exact same way right now." So just him expressing to me that he was feeling the same way and is going through that same pain brought a sense of relief to me. So I would say this: sharing your concerns with another brother is a form of therapy. What differentiates that experience from a professional is the fact that a professional is actually trained in psychotherapy, right? because they have the ability to elicit information from you to get to the source of the issue. That is what differentiates it. So we engage in some form of therapy every day. We just don't know it. You can call it supportive therapy, but obviously when you see someone like a Dr. Felder, yes, she is a trained psychotherapist. When you see someone like me, yeah, I'm a trained psychotherapist. But we need to do a better job of demystifying what psychotherapy is all about. It is really just offering you a different perspective, right? Adding tools to your toolbox to deal with life's challenges, which inevitably going to come your way. So that's what a psychotherapy does for you. So what I encourage brothers to do is do not let your physical strength or the appearance of emotional strength lead to emotional liability, which then lead to you becoming a liability to yourself, to your family, to your community. And like she said, she mentioned therapy for Black men. This is important because the Black male experience is different. Trust me, I know it is very different. And the ability to connect with someone who gets you is so vitally important. And that's probably one of the reasons why I'm so proud that I took the challenge, went to school so that I can have this level of representation in the community. Next slide. All right. So addressing trauma and historical context. So responses to traumatic experiences can be modeled and passed down inadvertently. So what I mean by that is, you've heard of the saying, more is caught than taught. And eventually what is caught, you're teaching, right? So PTSD, we've heard about it. It's a mental health condition that develops after experience or witnessing a traumatic events. I remember when I deployed to Afghanistan, and each time a rocket is launched onto base in Bagram and it hit the floor, I would hear a thud sound. It's just a specific sound. It's almost like slamming the door. I was there for about 5 months. When I came home, whenever the door slams in my home, I relive that experience again, and I have a traumatic response. I also grew up in a home where there was a lot of yelling, and then I catch myself sometimes yelling when I'm frustrated about something, right? So essentially, all that trauma that that experienced growing up is starting to rear its head, and I have traumatic experience. So traumatic events, the takeaway from this slide is traumatic events are inevitable, right? We're going to experience it. How we respond to these events will determine, how quickly we heal and stop intergenerational curse. Next slide. Now, like I said, I grew up in a house of a lot of turmoil, conflict, and unrest. And so I took some of those behavior into my relationships, certainly my marriage. Like I said, sometimes when I'm frustrated about something, I begin to raise my voice because that's the way I saw my parents deal with trauma and conflict. And so after a while, I started. Awareness is the first step. This is the point I'm trying to make. Is I begin to realize I learned this from my parents, and I have to do something about it. Now, when I have conflict with my spouse, I actually let my children experience conflict, how to deal with conflict in the proper way, let them know that it is okay to have disagreements. Now, how you deal with the disagreement is what matters. So, as a black man, I'm learning how to scan, to assess, and then address what I'm dealing with in a therapeutic manner. All right. Next slide. More than ever before, healing must occur within community. That's the best way for it to happen, especially in our community. Community healing is the process of individuals coming together to support and uplift each other, both emotionally and spiritually. It involves creating a safe and nurturing space for individuals to share their experiences, provide mutual support, find solace in the shared human experience. That this sense of belonging and connection can be deeply healing. Isn't that the story of the D9 community, right? Is we have a shared experience, because of what we're dealing with in the larger context of society. We come together because we understand what we're going through, and we have that connection. And the process to do that, when it comes to psychotherapy and mental health care, is first you have to acknowledge your pain. Have to acknowledge your pain, and then you want to share your pain with your brother. Okay, and then what that does is it fosters a brotherhood of support. And then, but this is very important. Within that, it is important to encourage each other to seek professional help. There's something in psychotherapy we call transference, where someone, when the client is sharing their concerns with you, it's almost like they're unburdening onto you. A brother may not be trained to deal with that level of burden, right? So it is important that we refer them to professionals who are trained in the very act of psychotherapy. And by the way, a lot of people don't realize is therapists actually do need therapists. Dr. Fetto can back me on that, because there's so much trauma, there's so much you can take. Eventually, you need to speak to someone. So if a therapist needs a therapist, how about the Black men in the community? So it's important that we foster that healing through community. Next slide. And oftentimes we take for granted the power of community in the healing process. We often do. And I think about this. Our foreparents were brought through the transatlantic trade from Africa to the United States. And then they suffered, harsh treatment in an unknown land, unknown language. How did they survive? How did they somehow manage to survive, and in some cases begin to thrive? It is through community. It is through healing. This is how we got the old spirituals, the blues. It is in a community engaged in self-therapy and community therapy. Bob Marley once said, emancipate yourself from mental slavery. Now, we don't have physical slavery, obviously, but there's a level of mental slavery that can happen when we feel like we're too cool for healing. We're not too cool for healing. More than ever before, we need each other. More than ever before, we need to engage in community healing. Next slide. So these are just some practical coping tools for mental health: exercise, meditation, journaling, and therapy. For me, it is exercise and prayer. For me, prayer, and I'm not trying to be a preacher, but prayer is where I find the most peace. So, for those who have faith-based coping mechanism, it is real, it is powerful, but you have to engage in something. You cannot continue on, and then before you know it, those issues begin to manifest themselves physically, as Dr. Felder alluded to in earlier slides. Next slide. So this is just a quick self-reflection. How do you currently manage stress? For me, I said physical activity, watch sports. For some, it could be anything. Do they smoke? Is it alcohol consumption that leads to more damage? What are your biggest stress triggers? Is it past trauma? Is it social media posts. Even I'm learning how to remove myself from social media because it has a capacity to trigger me sometimes. Is it politics? We live in an era where, you know, politics can be it's a lightning rod for a lot of people. So, you know, what are your triggers? It is important to identify those triggers. And this is where psychotherapy comes in. You know, when was the last time you felt truly relaxed? What were you doing? Like I said, I feel most relaxed when I'm praying and reading the word. And then, you know, what advice would you give to a friend dealing with stress? The advice should not be, you know, you'll be okay. You know, don't worry about it. This soon shall pass. It may not pass. They might need to seek professional help, and that is okay. Now, let me say a couple of things about psychotherapy. A lot of people think when you go see someone, all of a sudden they're going to give you some Xanax or whatever it is, benzodiazepine for the pharmacists in the group and the doctors in the group. What typically happens sometimes is when you see a professional. So I'm a psych and P engaged in medication management. Now, when people speak about their problems, oftentimes they leave without even needing medication. Just the idea of engaging in conversation with someone, sharing their concerns with you, oftentimes lead to healing. So it's not all the time that you're going to need some benzodiazepine to deal with the concern. Sometimes you might, but the goal is speak to someone before it gets too late. Next slide. So what can we do as a brotherhood? I'm an alpha man, but you know, this is still a brotherhood, right? Establish a mental health ambassadors within the chapter. This is something we actually doing in my chapter, where you have people who champion the idea of mental health care. Make it, the goal is to normalize it, you know, let it become a culture where, you know, brothers are open to dialogue and talk about their issues without being afraid of being ridiculed, right? Or being considered weak. And then, you know, provide access to mental health resources. Okay, definitely referral, because it might get to a point where you might have to tell the brother, listen, I think you're dealing with way more than you think. And I think it is best that you speak to somebody. And that is okay too. This is how healing through community can happen. All right, next slide. All right. It goes without saying, you know, brotherhood means supporting each other mentally, physically, you know, encourage open conversations and action steps. We just need to get to a point where we normalize the idea of seeking help. And seeking help does not mean you are weak. Seeking help is saying, you know, I care about you. I want to be around for as long as possible. We know the silent killer is a high blood pressure. We often wonder, is more than just diet? It's more than just genetics. Oftentimes, it's the fact that we deal with so much weight and we refuse to unburden ourselves, and then before long, it leads to, you know, physical manifestation, and then it gets to a point where it might be too late. So I'm gonna stop there. Thank you for this opportunity to speak, and open to questions.
Okay, so thank you so much. I mean, excellent information. So at this point in time, we'll just have a conversation amongst ourselves for the benefit of audiences. I mean, you said a lot of great things. You said about having a good fit. I think, which I think is very, very important, Dr. Felder. You mentioned that having a good fit. And the other thing that Dr. Azusa mentioned is that how do we deal with conflict? Because this is the biggest problem we have right now amongst brothers is dealing with conflict. And amongst our youth, we have to teach our youth how to deal with conflict. So those are very important topics that we need to bring to light, and something we can certainly spend more time on as we go through this series of information. So I'm going to open the floor to comments from my brothers, Doctors Phillips and Guyton. Any comments?
Well, I just want to say thank you. I, again, you know, find this information extremely important. As a family doctor, I would say 70% of every patient that comes in the door. At some point of our interaction, there's some conversation pertaining to mental health. And I thought, both of you brought up a point that I feel is very important, which is normalizing it, because even though these resources are there and we have people that are educated, college educated, et cetera, it's amazing how foreign the whole idea of seeking help for mental health issues is looked at. And again, how many people look at it as a wound that's just going to heal eventually by itself. And we all know that that doesn't happen. And then the worst part of it is when that wound starts to have intergenerational impact. So again, I just wanted, no question particularly, but just wanted to, again, thank both of you for your time.
I am truly,
Dr. Guyton, sorry for the interrupt. We do have a question in the chat that I want either one of the doctors to address. And it says, what about exercise and mental health? Either one of you want to comment on that?
Yeah, I know, Dr. Suzar, that's your thing there, so I'll turn it over to you. But definitely, exercise is a wonderful way to help improve your mental health. Actually, we have walking groups at work, and we're in the federal government, so things are very stressful. And first, it started with one person walking, and then he stopped by my office one day and he said, "Well, do you want to walk? This is a part of the resiliency that we're doing." And I said, "Sure." And then I asked someone else. Today when we walked, we had 6 people out there, and everybody, 30-minute walk, everybody came back feeling so refreshed, because walking in nature, just getting out and moving your body, just allows you to kind of set yourself free, to not think about what's happening inside of the building, what's happening with, potential rifts or whatever is changing in your work space. Just having that time for you, and you're building yourself. You're giving your body nourishment by having that time, spending that time, whether it's walking, some aerobic exercise, yoga, whatever, lifting weights, whatever it might be that stimulates you and give you some sense of happiness and well-being. And Dr. Suzar, I'll let you weigh in on that one.
Well, let me tell you something. Now, if you came to me with a concern, right, I will not prescribe any medications until you engage in something like that. So if you came to me and you said, I just need some Prozac, I need some Zoloft, I'm going to say, no, try this. And walking is perfect for it, because you have this natural release of, I call it happy chemicals, right? It's kind of amazing how the body is actually made, it's designed to take care of itself. Now, for another day, I'll get into serotonin and the gut and diet and how that plays into your mental health. But that's more involved than I want to get into today. But diet and exercise is one of the main ways to change your outlook. It gives you a different perspective, and it just kind of modifies the chemical release in your body. And so, yeah.
Thank you. Dr. Guyton.
First, I want to say thank you to Dr. Suzar and Dr. Felder. You know how I felt about both of you. I really appreciate your time. I really appreciate how you tie together the intergenerational trauma, spirituality, also looking at how the stigma has impacted our communities. One of the biggest things that we have as Black men is we're too strong to be weak. And you have hit that nail on the head. What I also want to make sure we focus on is how that passes down to our kids, how we are being impacted and passing down trauma to our kids and they're in places we've never understood and seen. So as we continue the series, I really want to thank you for all of the information and how great it was. And this will be replayed as a resource for many others. This is just a start, and I really appreciate it. I want you to know also, one of the major things that we try together in our chapter was spirituality and mental health, and how it can increase your well-being. And I like how you're tying mental health, spirituality, and well-being as well as into wellness. Thank you again for being here.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much.
Oh,
So we
I
got
just
about.
Can I just acknowledge, I saw in the chat, Dr. Harris, and
Dr. Harris,
she's
yes, I
definitely
see her.
a leader in the mental health field. And one of her things she mentioned down there, meditation and exercise. And that is actually how I got into meditation with Dr. Harris. She introduced me to that. And that has been something that I kept in my resource arsenal since meeting her, and her being able to introduce me to meditation. So I wanted to acknowledge that. And also another comment that she made about panic attacks, and our bodies can't manage the intense stress and anxiety. And many of us are under severe anxiety and intense stress, and may feel the results of a panic attack. And so I definitely wanted to acknowledge that, and for us to be aware of what we're dealing with and how we're dealing with and what we're feeling in our body and how we're reacting to that, and making space for ourselves and for our self-care, because it is vital at this time. So.
Okay, well, thank you again. I am much appreciative of, because I reinforced so much that I thought I knew, and I learned a lot of more things, and we have so many more things we can delve into. This is just the beginning of a long talk we'll be having. So I'm going to ask. We got about 4 minutes left. I'm going to ask you to each of you take about a minute or so to give you little wrap up remarks, and then have my brothers wrap up, and then we'll close it out with that. So I'll start with whichever one you want to go first, Dr. Felder. Your 1 minute wrap up.
Sure. So I just want to say thank you to everyone. Thank you to the Omegas for having us. And once again, to the D9, my D9 family, and some of my folks that I see here. This time, as I said earlier, is vital for our self-care. And self-care isn't selfish. I'll say that often. And if you need anything, feel free to reach out. We have to be a community for each other, and we have to support each other, whether you're Greek or not. We're here. We're here to serve and to support and to ensure that we're all making it through together. So I'll leave it there. I'll leave it there and pass the mic.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sousa.
No, I just want to say what an honor to be part of this. I truly am. I am here for this community. I really am. For so long, I've been in the sidelines doing my own thing, but never again. Whenever you need me, just reach out to me. I'm here to provide and support to my community. So thank you for having us.
You're quite welcome. 88.
Hey, well, again, we are on a mission to make ourselves as a people healthier, and we don't want to prescribe medicines. We don't want to have people just go, get surgeries and things like that. We'd rather allow you to do it with your lifestyle, and it starts from the head down. Again, so I am very thankful for our guests tonight in sharing their wisdom. I'm looking forward to part 2 and 3 of this discussion, because we all know how big of a deal mental health is. So again, prevention costs you a whole lot less than reaction. Thank you.
Amen to that. 91.
Hey, brothers and sisters here. We are a community that can support ourselves with the resources that we have. I want to really thank everyone that joined. I really want to thank Dr. Felder and Dr. Suzar. Great resources. I want to also let Dr. Harris, India Harris, know that you're not off the hook. We want to also hear from you about meditation and how it supports mental health. So I will be reaching out. Again, thank you all for joining us. Great presentations. And remember, this is just the start of a conversation in our community. We need to talk more. And again, I thank you again for all the support and you being here tonight. Thank you.
Well, yeah, you couldn't have said it better, So it's been a most educational and informative evening. I mean, we learned so much, and so much we can take from this program, and so much more we can get into. So again, I want to take this opportunity to especially to thank our guest speakers, Dr. Stephanie Felder and Dr. Gideon Sousa, for being here with us. I mean, this is the start of a long conversation we are going to have, and all the guests that were on and their contributions and the comments. I thank you for that as well. I would also like to thank our 39th Second District Representative, Brother Amir Sharif, for allowing us to continue to do our work, because his blessing lets us do these things. I'd like to thank my brothers of the committee, Brother Dr. Phillips and Brother Dr. Guyton. And he's never been called this before, but I want to thank our producer, Brother Piercy, who's behind the scenes, making sure we get all these things done. And we couldn't do this without him. And to all the brothers of the Mighty Second D and all the brothers of Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated, I want to thank you as well. But most of all, I want to thank you, our audience for your support and for joining us this evening. Until our next program, take care of yourselves and practice good preventative measures. Have a good evening.